Well, good morning and good afternoon, good evening to you, those of you that are listening to the Emblazing Leaders Podcast or watching the Emblazing Leaders Podcast. I'm here with Dr. Rachel Monarrez, and I'm going to be introducing her. I'm going to read her bio, and then she'll have an opportunity to introduce herself. Just want to say welcome, and hope that you all are having a great day. So welcome, Dr. Monarrez.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Dr. Sullivan.
You too. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna read your bio because I really want people to know who you are, and then if there's something that else you want us to know, I'll give you that great opportunity to express anything that I might have missed. But for now, let me tell you who we have on this morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. We have Dr. Rachel Monarrez. She believes in the possibility of every child, and this approach guides her daily interactions as superintendent of the Worcestershire Public Schools. She began her role in July of 2022. Now in her third decade working in education, Dr. Monarrez holds a vast knowledge base for academic excellence, professional development, and collaborative practices. She has served as a teacher, a school principal, a director of English learner programs, and a special education assistant superintendent and deputy superintendent. Wow. And as a social justice champion, she works collaboratively with all partners and stakeholders to foster a culture of equity, academic excellence, and high expectations for all learners. Her favorite quote is, "Excellence can be attained if you care more than others think is wise, risk more than others think is safe, dream more than others think is practical, and expect more than others think is possible." Dr. Monarrez was named one of 25 superintendents to watch nationally in 2023-24 by the National School Public Relations Association for her commitment to communications and family engagement. Dr. Monarrez received her Bachelor of Arts in History from the University of California, Irvine, and a Master of Arts in Education and PhD with an emphasis on urban leadership education from Claremont Graduate University. She is the proud mother of Natalie, a writer, teacher, and poet, and married to Jesus Monarrez, a retired educator. I want y'all to help me virtually welcome Dr. Monarrez, my sister, my friend, and also an alumni of Claremont Graduate University, like myself. Welcome in again. And if I missed anything, this is a lot, but if I missed anything, please tell us something that you want us to know about you. Wait. Let's go now.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's a lot. I would agree. That's a mouthful, right? No, I think the only thing that I would add is my core and my value is about protecting children. It's my deepest value that actually I didn't realize how deep it was until we came in, until I became a superintendent and saw the amount of potential that people can do, the adults can do to hurt children intentionally and unintentionally. And now more than ever during this time in our nation's history, protecting children is a core value of mine. And so I hope that you hear that in this little conversation we're going to have, because if it's not, then that's something I need to keep working on.
Wow. Well, I know we will, because I know I've experienced you on multiple occasions, and I do know that that's a core for you. And I hope that that's a core for our listeners as well, as we work with leaders and as we pour into leaders today to help them navigate the space, reminding us that it's all about serving our students. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and we're going to talk about navigating the leadership space. We're going to talk about that first. And the first question I'd love to ask you, Dr. Monarrez, is how do you approach decision-making during times of crisis and uncertainty?
Well, Dr. Sullivan, as you know, I had the opportunity to work in San Bernardino City Unified, a pretty large district in California, before I came to Worcester, which is, for those who don't know where it is, it's in Massachusetts. It's the second largest district in the New England states. I had no idea when I applied. We had a lot of attention, a lot of eyes on us. The one that's bigger than us is Boston. So it's Boston and then it's Worcester. And so anyway, in San Bernardino, I had lots of experience dealing with challenges and uncertainty and, just crises in different ways. And And so I always start with making sure that we have clear understanding of what is actually going on. So there is a framework that actually my previous superintendent would talk to us a lot about, and it's VUCA.
Mhm.
So it's a VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And
Mhm.
depending on the instance, there are
Mhm.
different kind of next steps as a leader to take. And so if it's volatile, for example, you've got to assure people that that you are aware and that you're going to you've got to calm the waters, because people look to the leader to calm things. And when I say people, I'm not just talking about the external people that are watching. I'm talking about those who are closest to you that are leading you. So in my case, it's my cabinet, and therefore then how they speak with the principals, the directors, as we move it down the chain. And so you have to speak with clarity, clear. So clarity on what you're saying, concise with your language, and understanding what the actual issue is, so that you're not spinning more unnecessary fear into people than than needed. So let's give the example right now of what's going on with immigration. I just had something happen last week. So as I said, the second largest district in the state of Massachusetts, but in all the New England states. So we're talking Rhode Island all the way up, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. I don't know who else is included in that. There's like 6. And I was the first to put some information out about immigration. I was surprised that I was the first. It was the day after the election, and it was simply to tell families, no, first to tell my staff internally, what do you do? What does the law say? How do we approach this if there are ICE officers that come to our schools? Because I believe that people deserve to have information so that they can they're empowered to make decisions, and they're not afraid, right? And so we did that, and then put out a much more generic statement to the families, just reiterating, what we will do as a district, but very broad, all in alignment with what the Massachusetts state law says, as well as what in Massachusetts, they're referred to as school committees, not school boards. And so what our policy on school committee said. In my mind, that's because in the VUCA environment, there's a lot of ambiguity as it relates to immigration. And so when it's ambiguous, you want to be transparent with your language and give information, not too much, but just enough. That was my intention. It became very politicized very quickly. One, because we were the first. Boston came out a couple days later. And second, because in one of the internal communications that then got posted, our transportation department reminded our bus drivers that when we're transporting students to and from school, their response, if there is ICE waiting at the bus stop, you're not to drop them off, because they have to have the appropriate documentation in order to enter a school, and the to and fro is part of that. It's just out in the community, right? Well, that got a lot of attention. And then the statement in the parent letter that I gave said that we will not coordinate with ICE, meaning we're not going to give them information unless they have the appropriate warrant. But that got twisted into we will not cooperate. And so we got a lot of information out there, and I'm okay with that. That's what it is. But the fear and the volatile part came was with that notice to the bus drivers, because it got into, social media spaces, and families thought that there actually was ICE at waiting at a bus stop.
Oh, wow.
And it started coming to me in different ways. The first time it came to me, because I have spent a lot of time building relationships in the community, it was a
Mhm.
community leader, and I was like, no, no, no. I didn't understand what they were concerned about. I said, just
Mhm.
keep restating what we've already told them. It's okay. by about noon of that day, I realized, oh, it's getting misunderstood. So I had to put out
Mm.
a clear, I had to put out something new and clearly state there has been no sightings of ICE in our schools, and then explain this was all in preparation. We want people to have to know what to do. And so I say all that because that could have been a much bigger crisis than what it was. My staff knew what to do. So
Right.
because we had given them the information and they were clear, we were okay there. It's the community misunderstood this
Yeah.
little memo and it started to spin real fast. So communication is really, really it's huge in what I do in any time of uncertainty. Another key lever is to include people in the decisions that impact them. So depending on the how important, no, I guess the timeliness of the crisis and how quickly we need to respond. Sometimes
Mhm.
things that we think are a crisis really are it's a change and it's a challenge in the organization. And if we have not done enough of the pre-work with those who we want to actually implement the change, then it can become a crisis that then we have to come back and bring those people to the table and and not stop the work, but continue to improve upon the work with those who were asking to do it, so that they are one feel empowered in the next steps, right? But also I firmly believe that those who are closest to the work will give us information that we meaning those at the district level, that we would not even be able to anticipate. And so
Mhm.
engaging with people is another very important practice. Last one I would say is be very clear, and I do this with my cabinet a lot. What are the core beliefs or the guiding principles we're going to lean into as we move forward in this work? And we have to be clear on that it's so that it's not emotionally driven. And so when you get some kind of crisis or pushback or whatever that might be, that you go back to those guiding principles. And if you've made errors, that you own that and then you improve upon that.
Wow. That's great. I think one of the things that I heard you say was VUCA or BOCA. I'm hearing
VUCA.
you say VUCA, and I
Mhm.
loved how you pointed out the like gave us the acronym so that we can know what it is. And so I'd love for you to just kind of repeat those again. It was VUCA, and if you can give us the acronym again.
Yes, absolutely. So the V stands for volatile.
Uh-huh.
The U stands for uncertain.
Uh-huh.
The C stands for complex. And the A stands for ambiguous.
Thank you for that. Yeah, very good. Excellent. Thank you for responding to that question so thoughtfully and so like planned out. It really gives us a lot of insight as to how we can actually ensure communication goes forward, which is one of the things that you said. Because one of the things you said earlier was that you were really, you wanted to focus on kids. That's what your main priority is, kids and or children, our students. And so with that in mind, ensuring that the community has resources and tools and information about what might we do in case this happens, and then providing that clarity for when there was a misunderstanding. I think that that was what kind of I heard, so that you minimized the impact to the community. So thank you for that leadership. The next question is along the same thing, navigating the leadership space. How do you foster a culture of adaptability and resilience within your team during the times? Because you talked about uncertainty, but during these times of uncertainty, how do you foster that culture of adaptability and resilience?
Yeah. Um, I actually would say that it's it's actually what you do before. It's the ongoing work that you do with your team in building their leadership, modeling the mindset that you expect and guiding them through it every time you bring them together. Um, and then when a crisis comes, leaning into what you have already built upon as a leader. So for example, in Worcester, when I first got there, it was very much a district where they weren't heavy on it. The way it was described to me, and then I experienced it myself, it wasn't a school district, it was a district of schools. So we
Mm,
had over 50 schools, and every school has its own personalities, and I always want that to continue, but there wasn't district guidance on systems improvement, monitoring. We left it up to each principal, and so when you have a new principal, you know, they need support. And even if you have a veteran principal, as things change, they deserve that same support, right? Not through a punitive compliance mindset, but through a growth and continuous improvement and systems improvement work. And so in Worcester, when I first got there, when something would happen, whatever it might be, I can't remember. I think it had to do with, I'm trying to remember, like right that the first school year within like September, because the school year starts at the end of August. I think there was a placement issue and like there was a big enrollment issue. And so the way I handled it is, you know, take care of the fire because we got to take care of it. Children and families need us to respond, and or staff, whatever it is. So let's take care of that fire. But then we can't just move on as if the fire won't come back again because there's a systems issue. So we took care of whatever that fire was. And then I called them into my office, which was very uncommon, in the middle of the day. And I said, all right, we need to do an after action. And so after action reviews, again, something that practiced in San Bernardino City very regularly. And so I brought that to Worcester. And now it's part of our lexicon. They do it now without me. But at first it was like, we're not going to point fingers at the problem. This is a systems issue. This is not a person issue. So what happened? What are we learning? And what are we going to do differently in terms of systems development or systems refinement so that we are not always putting out the same fire? There'll be a lot more fires to put out, right? But I have it. The key in that is that you build that before the crisis happens, and then you model it during the crisis, and then you improve upon it after the crisis, right? So that they see that when there's a mistake, when something happens, when it doesn't go the way that we want it to, the leader is not going to come back down and, you know, I'm not going to face retribution. I'm not going to be made to feel that I am inadequate, but instead as you know, I'm going to be part of figuring out the issue and improving upon it. So that's where I think you develop the flexibility in the team, and you also develop the capacity, which is essential in my mind. I want to be able to leave Worcester better than how I arrived, and I want them to own this continuous improvement mindset. You don't hold people accountable without giving them the tools and the supports to get there. And so I'm really pleased at the growth that's happened. And it's because I really think I don't point fingers. That doesn't mean I don't get upset, because I get upset, right? But at the end of the day, I always believe that everyone wants to learn. Everyone wants to be their best. And, you know, no one wakes up in the morning to say, okay, I'm going to go and screw up the system today, right? That's not what the way things happen. So how I treat them each and every day, how I use our precious time together to develop them is then how I teach them and model that flexibility and being nimble.
Wow. Okay, so a lot of things that you said stood out to me and are resonating with me. Specifically, you said you don't hold people accountable without giving them the tools and resources to be accountable. So that is going to live with me, because a lot of times in leadership, and again, as we're talking about navigating the leadership space, what happens often is that we're asking people to do a certain job or a certain task or giving them a certain responsibility, but then we're not setting them up for success by giving them the resources and the tools and the support that's necessary. So I certainly appreciate, you know, leaders who will not only hold me accountable, but also will set me up for success by giving me the tools and resources and support that's necessary. So thank you for that leadership. And I'm telling you, the schools and districts that have the privilege of having you as a leader are so blessed. So I'm excited. Okay. So I get really excited when I listen to good leadership, when I see good leadership, because our kids do deserve that. So thank you for your leadership. We're going to talk about experiencing triumph. Okay. So I'm going to have you share your experience with managing up. Okay. And so what strategies can you share with other leaders as they navigate managing it?
I kind of feel like I started to touch on a little bit. It's, I think that's probably the part. Well, I want to make sure first that I'm tracking with you. So meaning me managing my supervisor, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to give our leaders, because a lot of times, and even in my own experience, I'm like stumped when it's like, okay, I need them to know this, but how do I tell my supervisor that I need this support, or like, you're not really giving me what I need in order for me to do what I need to do. So yeah, how do you navigate, you know, managing up with your superior, your supervisor?
Yeah. Um, I think that's probably one of the areas that I have the biggest challenge with. Because like you, I'm not quite sure what that looks like. And yet I think I've done it over the years, but mostly I think I've done it in my current role because as you know, once you get to the superintendency, it's your board or it's your school committee that you are working with, right? And you're kind of managing them in a sense. And so I see it as one, of course, having there has to be, you have to build a relationship and earn that trust, right? So it's not a relationship where we're like, hey, let's go out and have cocktails. Although I'll tell you, here in Massachusetts, there are a lot of cocktails that flow, but a lot more than I'm used to. But it is about earning that trust, that that confidence and credibility as a leader. So that your leader or your supervisor, whether that's your school board or your assistant, your soup, when you're an assistant soup, whatever that is, they're always watching and listening to how you um, manage others and how you're thinking about things, right? Your mindset, whether they will tell you that or not. And so I think what I have learned in my current role is I'm not, how do I say this? Not to be afraid to be pretty clear about where you stand on things. Kind of like, not that you're like this, not that you're an oak that won't bend and sway, but be more like a willow tree where it's like, no, I'm strong and I will sway depending on, but I'll sway enough that I still can get the work done and what I know needs to happen, but not so much that I will break and snap. And so I find myself doing a lot of kind of asking questions of them that I know what I've got behind my head thinking, and then strategizing based off of what they tell me. So a lot of listening, a lot of questioning, then combining it. So you and I both have our doctorate. It's like these little mini lit reviews that I do on a regular about what they say and what are the themes I'm hearing? How does that align with where I need to go for the district? And if there's not an alignment because I don't feel like like there's not success doesn't seem like can be achieved, then what do I need to come back to them um, and plug back into what they said to me and how I need to move it along? I don't say it's time consuming, but it's not something that happens quickly. So first you've got to earn the trust and credibility and confidence of them while you're asking a lot of questions of them. And let's be honest, a lot of, people in higher level positions, they really like to talk. So if you ask questions, they'll be happy to tell you. And then from there, stepping back and being strategic about, okay, if this is where I need to go and this is in alignment with their thinking, where's the nexus and where might be some breakdowns, which is then maybe the resource that you might need. And maybe it's a connection with somebody, or maybe it is, it might be a fiscal need, or it could be just some like release of a little bit of time to do something. Maybe you need to go to a conference. I mean, it depends on it, but really plugging into what is most important for them. I have a friend who she worked with me in San Bernardino, but she's outside of the education world.
Mm.
And she had this acronym, which was WIFM, what's in it for them.
Mm.
it for them. So it's like, okay, so what is in it for them? Because ultimately they want to thrive, right? They may or may not realize how much they need you. So you got to help them figure out how much they need you. But you've got to figure out what's there with them. What's in it for them.
That's pretty good. Thank you for that. Yeah. As I listen and I hear you, it reminds me of some experiences that I've had with trying to manage up. And I agree that it's a difficult challenge. And I've had some triumphs with that, but I've also had some downfalls with that. And in an experience that I've had, sometimes it can be very rewarding, but other times it can kind of be detrimental. So we have to be able to navigate that and be mindful of how we express the things that we express to our superiors so that we can still do what our number one goal is, again, for our students, because if we're not there, then the kids won't benefit. So, but at the same time, how do we balance, like, well, I want to be able to, help them help me, but I also want to be able to still be here to be able to support this community. So, so thank you. And then with the WIFM, I got the WIFM and I wrote it down. So thank you for the WIFM. We're going to talk a little bit about advancing in careers. Okay, we're going to navigate over to that space. So how have you leveraged networking and professional relationships to create opportunities for career growth?
Yeah. When I was a new teacher, I started my career in Pomona Unified, and I actually
Mhm.
did my student teaching there. So I was in Pomona for 18 years.
Oh, wow.
The way I describe it is, I grew up in Pomona. I did my teaching there, student teaching. I lived in the community for a long time. I was a professional developer at the district office, and then I was a principal. I had a really positive reputation in the district. And Pomona's I think it's shrunk in size a little bit, but it was a decent sized district. So um, but I had a good reputation, let's just say that. And so I never thought about the need to network or to even go outside of Pomona. Like, why would I? This is where I started my career. I'm happy here. Um, and I'm willing to at early enough on in my career, I was willing to wait. But I always knew that I wanted to be at that time an assistant superintendent. Although I didn't call it that. I wanted to be in charge of the teaching and learning, whatever that was going to be called.
Right.
Brand new teacher, I had no idea, and I wasn't in a rush. Um, and then there was a superintendent. She actually was the first assistant soup in the district because they didn't have an assistant soup.
Mm.
Came in, and I watched her. And first, I kind of we butted heads a little bit, but we then really saw, well, I think she saw in me. I didn't, I was not a new teacher anymore, but I was definitely a teacher with thoughts. Um, and so she was heavily involved with CALSA. So CALSA is the California Association Latino Superintendents and Administrators. And
Mm.
she brought that to the district, like kind of encouraging people to find out about it. So I think at that time I had just decided I was I was ready to go enter into administration. I did not move into administration right away. I stayed in the classroom and did like teacher specialist kind of work for
Mhm.
about 12 years. So I really love working with kids, right? It's my greatest joy. So I wasn't in a hurry. It's just, at some point you're like, oh, if I do this with 30 kids, what might I be able to do for a school? And then once you get the school bug, then it's like, what might I be able to do? Kind of, you know how it goes. So
Yes.
she brought that in. And so fast forward, I am then my first year of being a principal. And my friend who was a principal also said, let's go to this summer conference with Calza. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is, but sure, let's go. And it was like my first time going to CABE, which is California Association Bilingual Educators. When I went to that, I remember thinking, right, because you just have this feeling of just joy being around people who are the same mindset, because it's not
Mhm.
always the case, and you need that time to refuel so you can go and do the work that's necessary, and that's what Causa was for me. So
Right.
initially, I started as a principal in it. Then I joined the the mentoring program where I was a protege. So they have a very strong mentoring
Nice.
program that I became a part of.
Mhm.
Then once I finished the protege, then I became a mentor for others. And through that process was one, I met so many people throughout the state of California who
Mhm.
were committed to advancing academic opportunities for Latino youth and English learners and their communities. And I like literally, I was at home and it became a family reunion every year going to the summer conference. And then the people that you met and the learning that you had as a result of it. And so as the organization grew, I grew with it. I officially started a women's leadership network, was able to get a board seat under that. I was actually the president-elect when I was selected to be the superintendent in Massachusetts. So I had to leave the
Oh,
organization. Yeah, and it was really like it was hard for me, but in all of that also, so I started in Pomona, but during that time, Talisa gave me the confidence and the little nudging that I can and I should aspire to do more. And Pomona doesn't have to be the only there are children everywhere that need a leader that sees their promise and their possibility. And it's through those networks, through those conversations, through the workshops I would go to, listening to keynotes that gave me enough of a push to start aspiring to do more and seeing that I could, and knowing that if I failed, because I will, and I did, that I had a safety net behind me. And there wasn't this, it wasn't judgment. It was deep care. I found a small group of individuals that to this day we're very close with each other. Our families spend time together, and it might happen like since I've moved here, it's only through text messages right now, but I know they're out there for me, right? And they know I'm here for them. And for, it's just this group of 6 of us. We even named ourselves. So the networking, I used to think that it was kind of like a yucky thing, but it's not for you, you could use networking as a transactional approach. And
right.
I don't believe in that. And once I realized that there are going to be people who are going to be transactional, I can choose
Mhm.
how I engage with them or how I don't. And then there are those who really want to transform educational opportunities for kids. And I know those ones too, right? And so those are the ones I tend to spend a little more time with. And those are the ones that even if we don't get a lot of time when we see each other, it's like you never had this break in between. So I would um, never downplay the importance of networking. And let me add one more thing that is really important. With networking, as you move up in the on your career ladder, there's just less opportunity for other positions, right? Literally, there's just the quantity is not the same. And
Right.
that's just the way it works. You need people that will just open the door. And when I say open the door, it's like so and so has applied for this position. Might you take a look at their application? That's it,
Mhm.
right? This happens all the time. It happens everywhere. Many times here where I live now, it's based off of who they know from who they went to school with or who's married to whom or the family. And, but it's happening with,
Right.
with organizations that support the networking. It is not about, well, it's because we grew up together and therefore it is about the mindset is focused on a core belief about the children that we serve. And why wouldn't we want to at least give this person the opportunity to get their foot in the door? Then it's up to, then they've got to wow everybody. They've got to demonstrate their brilliance and their knowledge. And if they don't, they're not going to get selected. And if they get selected and they're not successful, then we come in and we're like, hey, you weren't ready for that yet. So slow your roll. We'll get you ready, right? Like, and I say the collective we, but you do need people that will open the door for you because otherwise you're just another name in a packet of applications. And that's hard to break through that. So the networking is really important in that as well.
Wow. I heard a lot. I always hear a lot. And every time we engage, I just want you to know that I'm enlightened every time and I get more information and more knowledge, not just about, the work that we do every day, but more about you and who you are. I did hear you mention a sister circle kind of, or maybe it's not just a sister circle. It could be a circle. And that's something that, and I'm not sure if it's big beyond California, but I know here in California, we do a lot of sister circling. So that was one of the things that I think that you mentioned about, just navigating and networking. And then you mentioned like the networking groups like Calza, or CABE, where you have, these professional organizations that will embrace you and provide mentorship and then eventually turn you into a mentor, which is, what we need. We need people mentoring people. And so those are some great nuggets for our audience to take away with them, to get involved, because again, some people may not find networking valuable, or they may use it transactional, as you mentioned, but it's really meant to be able to propel you forward if that's what you select, or to pour in so that others can propel forward. So thank you for that.
And I'll add one more thing. So moving to Massachusetts, right? I'm coming from a state in California, heavy in Calza, like I'm used to all of that. That doesn't exist here. I was like, oh, and I felt, I was like, it like pulled me, and so I have found a few people throughout the state in New England, right? So in the New England states, through ALAS, which is a national, so it's Association Latino Administrators and Superintendents, but it's a national one. And then various states might start their own affiliation. So we are starting a New England ALAS affiliation. Right. So if you don't have it, I guess is what I'm saying, then create it. Right. And that adage of build it and they will come. We firmly believe that, it's not gonna be Calza right away, but Calza took many years, decades to get there. But we are building it because we really want to build that pipeline of those who see the brilliance in our children and don't see them as coming in as deficits or with deficits.
That's brilliant. And the thing I heard you say was that if you don't have it, create it. And it's really given me an idea, because someone actually did, and I'm gonna shamelessly pivot to mention the Quantum 10, the conference that I developed, the framework, the Q10 that I developed. And someone did mention that they'd love to see like some sort of membership for Q10. So maybe there's something that we can do. We can create something that will bring people together, affinity groups, and then having a group within a group. Because my thought process would be like, we can do a lot with many of us, but we also need to have our affinity space as well. So thank you for that. We're going to go into general leadership insights. So my question for you is, how do you create an environment where honesty and transparency are valued, yet ensure that feedback is delivered with respect and empathy?
I'm going to start with, it starts with the leader and how the leader, the willingness of the leader to be vulnerable. And when I say vulnerable, I'm saying vulnerable in terms of information that's shared. Like, you don't have to share your life story, but you need to give an aura of which you don't come in and I've got all the answers, right? That shuts people down. It stops the thinking. They think then, well, if that's your stance on things, then what do I have to offer, right? I'm just going to wait for you to feed me, Mama Bird, right? And that I don't believe in that, and in fact, it drives me crazy. So, but I know that people think that that's the way, in some ways, we're supposed to behave, and I don't believe in that. So,
it's funny, Dr. Monarrez, because I'm sorry, I got a visual, as you said, feed me, Mama Bird. I don't know what it is about recently. I've been like looking at animals a lot. I have never really been into animals, but this cat just adopted us. And so it keeps coming to our house. And of course, my daughter keeps feeding it. So it comes every single day for like the last 6 months. And it just reminds me, like when I'm looking at those visuals on TikTok or wherever I'm looking at it, and I see the mama bird feeding the bird. So I'm sorry, I had a visual, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
But that's exactly what I feel like, right? And when you're a superintendent, you're those are your principals and those are your directors and those are your assistant soups. These are high level people who are in really important positions, and they should be empowered to be able to make decisions and shouldn't wait for mama bird to feed them, right? Like that's that's so sad, because at the end of the day, there are children that are at their schools, teachers that are in the classroom. I don't want my teacher feeling like the principal has to tell them what to do so then they can tell what the kids want. Like, that's just not the way this needs to work, nor should it.
You know, I want to interject again too, because I don't want to lose this point about that. And I want to share with our audience and our listeners why, and hopefully they'll get some insight as to why some people do that. And I'll say, I know, because I've experienced being like, okay, I need mama bird to feed me. But the reason why I do that, I'm being strategic, because sometimes mama bird wants to be the only sage on the stage. They want to be the star. They want everyone to look at them and regard them as the only person who knows. And people are trying to survive. And it's like, okay, if I want to keep this job, or if I want to keep this, I got to make sure that they know that I know that they're the best. When in reality, whatever I do as a teacher in power, it illuminates to you as the leader. And I don't know why our, you know, in our society, people don't see that we all can shine and we can all be stars. And so I want to really get into that mentality where I don't have to wait for someone to feed me because I'm afraid that they're going to think I think I'm brilliant and that I'm trying to shine past them, when what I'm really just trying to do is serve our kids. So
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's why I say it starts with the leader, right? It's being vulnerable. It's taking your ego. We all have them. Everybody has an ego. And if you're aspiring to be in a superintendent position or a higher position, you got ego. Of course you do. What do you do with that ego? What is your ego about? For me, I don't like to be in the center of attention. I do it because it's my job. My work is about building others, building
mhm,
the possibility in others, having them shine, because when they shine, I shine, right? I
absolutely.
will take the hits when I have to take the hits. I will protect them to do the work that they need to do. And if they make mistakes, I'm okay with that as long as they're learning from the mistakes. If they keep making the same mistake over and over again, now that's a different conversation, right? So I believe that the leader has to start with being vulnerable. The leader has to start with being transparent. The leader has to model this idea of continuous improvement and making mistakes and saying, yeah, like, oh yeah, I blew that one. I don't have trouble saying that with my principals. And at first it was really, I think they thought I was crazy, because it's like, or they didn't believe me. They
Right.
didn't believe me, right? Because that just has not been the way.
Right.
Over time, they have they've come to see that, oh, she doesn't lose her mind when we, like last year, our accountability data, it didn't look good.
Mm,
It dropped compared to the year before. And I took hits from my school committee. And at the end of the day, I said, look, the state keeps changing how they're monitoring this. They are dropping, we're dropping. Like, as the state's graph is looking, ours is, that's strange, and it shouldn't go that way. So I'm not going to use the accountability. I'm not going to be punitive. We're chasing achievement in this district under my leadership. And when I see growth, I'm going to celebrate it. And if you didn't grow, that's okay too, because you're going to keep learning from it. That's what I expect. And so it is saying it, but then matching the actions with what you say, because people are watching. They are indeed watching. And if you have a leader that is not owning that kind of mindset and they're doing more of a punitive, then you have to go and have a private conversation about that, right? Not a public one, but a private one, because it's how everybody is responding that will lead to this transformation in education. So, um, gosh, I don't even know if I answered the question. I
oh, yeah, I think you have, because we're just really talking about creating an environment of transparency and honesty. And I think that you definitely hit a few points. And one of the things that I really appreciate about listening and hearing is that we have the opportunity to engage and refine I get a chance to hear that in your leadership, that your people under that are working, I don't want to say under you, I don't really like that, but working with you, the people that are working with you have the opportunity to fail, right? So how are you creating that environment? You're creating that safe space, that psychological safety that's necessary in order for us to say, oops, Dr. Monarrez, I messed up on this one. I totally blew it with this and I apologize, but I got to do something different and I need help. But we're afraid to say that, because if we say it, then a lot of times our job is on the line, because we've just, people are afraid to be vulnerable when they're fearful of their jobs. And so creating an opportunity for failure, gives us that cushion we need to be like, I dropped it, I need help picking it up. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, ultimately, when I was a teacher, I had just a little poster that I just threw out, right? But it basically said mistakes, uh, shoot, no, I just forgot it. But the idea that, when we learn from our mistakes, like failure is okay. We learn from it's learning from them. And if we want our teachers to teach our children that it's okay to make mistakes, that actually with mistakes, you stretch and you grow. If we want our teachers to do that, then we have to do that with them. The principals, we have to do that with the principals. Like we have to model it all the way down, including with our parents, right? Like some parents, we know, they come at us, they can be, wow. And then once they realize that they're a little out of line, how do we respond after that? Do we cast them off? Or do we say they had a bad day, we're going to restart, right? Like that's that whole idea of being restorative in our approach with people. We are human and we make mistakes, um, and that's why we're human. It's what we do with it.
Thank you. And I loved hearing you talk about being restorative with adults, because we ask that we're restorative with our students, but then we forget that if we want to model that behavior, if we don't model that behavior for our adults, then they're not going to model that for our students. So thank you for that reminder. We have a few more questions. I just got two more. We're going to talk about future forward. So I'm going to ask you just a couple questions under there. What would your younger self give? What advice would your younger self give to the leader you are today?
Um, Stay out of the weeds. No, actually, understand that there are weeds and
Mm-hmm.
only go into them when those who need your help need you to better understand, or they're not sure themselves. Um, but it's your job, Rachel, as the leader, to be leading the work, and not because you're better than, but people need you to give direction. They need you to give cover. They need you to tell them when things are working. They need you to look at the systems. They need you to be doing that so that they can do the actual work, right? So that would be one thing. I would also remind myself that the work is about people, and relationships are really, really important. And the more that you see people as people with hopes, desires, and dreams, um, and invest in that, then you will be able to go even faster for children in terms of system structures and improvement. But you've got to invest in seeing people as people with their hopes, desires, and dreams. And if you don't know that about others, I'm a very reserved individual. I like to, I don't have a huge circle of like close friends. I have a few that are close friends of people that I like. And over time, I have opened myself up. But I know myself, I'm very much an introvert. Doesn't mean anything other than I just need my time and I need to, but I also recognize how that can be perceived for those who don't know me. And I've had to learn that the work is about people. And so if people don't feel safe around me, then we can't move the work, and ultimately children won't get what they need. So just reminding myself that it's not just about getting things done. So much of getting the things done is engaging with the people that you work with. And they don't, again, doesn't have to mean that you're all buddies, and, it's better when you like each other, but you do need to see each other as humans with hopes, desires, and dreams.
Yes, thank you. And I love the human-centered element that you just brought in, just reminding us. So thank you for that. The last question that I have for you, Dr. Monarrez, is what is one leadership tip that you can give to our Emblazing leaders that are watching or listening today?
The leadership tip. I really want to say, enjoy the journey. Just enjoy the journey, right? I mean, learn during the journey, enjoy the journey. It goes so quickly. And so we can get caught up in, when I was a teacher, the one thing I disliked more than anything was grading papers. Disliked it, hated it. That was like the one thing there's always going to be something that we just dislike in the work, right? We might dislike the political maneuvers we have to make. We might dislike the personnel decisions we have to do. We might dislike the special ed due process cases that we have to, settle. But those are like the grading of the papers. They don't define the whole role. And so my leadership tip is do your best to just enjoy the journey and remember that your work is about creating opportunities and possibilities for children. They count on us, they need us. And if it's not us, which is what Talisa would say all the time, if it's not you, then who? If it's not now, then when? So enjoy it.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time today. I'm sure our Emblazing leaders out there appreciate the words of wisdom and all of the golden nuggets that they're going to get from watching this episode. Just want to say how grateful and want to show you some gratitude on today. So thank you, Dr. Monarrez, for your words of wisdom.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan.
Absolutely. Okay, Emblazing leaders, just a shameless plug again, we're going to be having the Q10 conference again. So I want you to look for the Q10 conference, get the information off of the website. You can find it at www.q10equityandeducation.com. And just have a great day, everyone. And we will see you on the next episode.